Hello. So today we are looking at Shiva. More specifically, this is his most wrathful form, where he is named Bhairava. So some things that we're noticing right off the bat are his many hands and his multiple heads. And
yeah, it looks like he has maybe 10 arms and 5 heads. I'm just noticing that his face looks pretty peaceful, even though he's in this very active pose. I'm just wondering, it looks like he has his third eye open, and yet his face is very sort of subdued and almost passive.
yeah, so we're noticing a lot of juxtaposition and a lot of maybe differences and a struggle on two sides in him. We see that he has multiple hands and body that's very active maybe, and that it's in motion, and yet his face is very kind of maybe calm almost, and even in the things that he holds in his hands.
I was going to say along that theme, he's holding this flower in one of his left hands, the second one from the back, and then also he has this garland of skulls around his shoulders and dropping down to the floor, which is in itself a pretty violent image, but then you have this beautiful flower, and it's sort of going along with that theme of paradox. These two sort of very different feelings within one person.
Yeah, there's a clear tension going on here, and even in the way he's decorated, as you started mentioning, he has a skull necklace, but if you look to his face and his jewels on the crown of his head, they're more like precious materials. And yet, if you look at his earrings, one of them seems to be the elaborately decorated jewel, and the other one is kind of more of a snake-like thing.
There are a lot of snakes in this figure. I'm noticing some snakes that I'm pretty sure are snakes, and some that look very snake-like, this sort of garland around his body and the earring and around his ankles too. Just noticing these very snake-like figures.
It's interesting because snakes shed their skin, and it's like a symbol of regeneration through death, and that's kind of what Shiva is all about. He is the god of destruction, and yet he's also the one who brings about rebirth.
So he's the creator, destroyer. These two paradoxical elements within one form. It's really cool.
Yeah. And continuing on these tensions that we're seeing in him, or the good and the bad, perhaps, to put it simply, we notice that in this form he's very, or we called him wrathful, but it seems like he was put into this kind of form because of a reason, and there's a story that goes he's a god who can usually be found in a cemetery meditating constantly, just covered in ash with his long dreaded hair, one who doesn't like to be disturbed. But yet the love of his life, his other half, who's named Parvati, was introduced to him, and when they were introduced, her father very strongly disapproved of the match, and Parvati decided to go against her father's wishes of them not coming together, and decided to stay with Shiva regardless, despite his constant meditation, despite his perhaps strange appearance. And one day, her father decided to throw a huge sacrificial fire kind of ceremony, and he invited all of the gods and all of the people, but he specifically excluded Shiva and Parvati. And when Parvati learned of this happening, she was devastated. She was shocked. She ran to Shiva and told him what was happening. And Shiva said, "It's okay. Your father's angry with me. He's not angry with you. So you should still go. You should go and find out what's happening at the ceremony." So with his blessing, Parvati decided to go on the journey to the ceremony. And when she got there, she noticed that her father was just insulting Shiva left and right. He was speaking out about him in front of all the other gods and just disrespecting him. So she decided to do something rash and drastic, and she threw herself into the fires, and sacrificed herself as an extreme form of protest. and said just before then that she would
not live in this life as long as she had a father who disrespected higher power and disrespected the authority of Shiva. So she would wait to be reborn into a better form or a new form where she could love Shiva wholly and have the support of her father.
Yes. And when Shiva learned of her death and her sacrifice, he ran to the site and annihilated everybody there, including her father and all the attendees. And he picked up her body and started running around the world in circles, constantly just running. So when Vishnu saw this, he realized that if Shiva continues his running, he's going to destroy the world. So he had to stop him. Vishnu took Parvati from Shiva, cut her up into pieces, and threw the limbs all over the world. And they say nowadays that these sacred places where her body fell are now always guarded by a mini Bhairava.
Holy sites?
Yeah, so the holy sites are always guarded by this man.